Victoria and Tolia crossed paths for the first time in their last year of university. Despite the fact that they faced many difficulties that year, they managed to establish a strong, trusting relationship. After graduating from university, they got married and started living together. Not so long ago, they celebrated 7 years of marriage. While Tully's career soared, Victoria encountered difficulties with the company she worked for and struggled with her superiors. Over time, her passion for climbing the corporate ladder faded, and she found herself stuck in an average employee role with a modest paycheck. As a result, Tully stepped up as the primary breadwinner for their household. Even last summer, when they were planning a vacation, both Victoria and Tully had their hearts set on a seaside getaway. Despite her heavy workload, Victoria persuaded her husband that they desperately needed a break. It had been a while since they'd traveled. They had saved all year for this trip, and it was their dream vacation. However, life threw them a curveball when they discovered that vacation package prices had skyrocketed, leaving them short on funds. They considered taking out a loan but quickly remembered their long-standing promise never to go into debt, no matter the circumstances. Now their only hope was for another vacation. Tully took on extra work to save enough money, and even booked a trip in advance to surprise his wife. To their surprise, his plan succeeded, and he managed to get the long-awaited tickets. Victoria was overjoyed, and they finally set off on their long-awaited journey. The hotel they stayed at exceeded their expectations, and the staff was incredibly welcoming. Their first day was spent relaxing, with the following days dedicated to exploring the area and enjoying the beach. One evening, they started discussing the idea of going on an excursion. "I'll handle it," Victoria said before stepping out of the room. She headed to the reception on the ground floor to ask about the available excursions. She had noticed the flyers and pamphlets earlier, but hadn't thought about grabbing them at that moment. While she was admiring the colorful photos and occasionally asking the receptionist for details, a stranger approached her. His voice was warm and deep as he offered, "I highly recommend this sea trip." Victoria looked up at him, intrigued. "Have you been there?" she asked, curious not only about the tour, but also about the man himself. Just at that moment, the secretary was called by an urgent phone call, and the two of them were left chatting. The man introduced himself to Delana, mentioning that he had spent a week on vacation and had seen everything he could. However, with a chuckle, he added that he would be more than happy to relive this experience with such a charming companion. Victoria was caught off guard by his flirtation, but found that she liked it. Deciding to keep her marital status a secret, she talked to him a little more, taking the promotional booklet he offered. After a few more minutes, she excused herself, saying she needed to go back to her room. When she got back, Tully asked where she'd been for so long. Victoria, not wanting to tell the truth, fibbed, saying she'd been waiting quietly for the receptionist. A couple of days later, in the late evening, the couple took a stroll along the beach. The temperature had dropped, so Victoria wrapped herself in a sweater. "Come on, let's reminisce about our youth, it'll be fun," Tully suggested, already starting to undress. Victoria raised an eyebrow. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Let's swim and relive our first summer together, when we used to bathe under the moonlight," he said, already knee-deep in the water, his hand extended to her. Shivering from the cold, Victoria firmly insisted it was better to stay on the shore to avoid catching a cold. While her husband continued to splash around and beckon her to join him, she only managed a forced smile, her thoughts elsewhere on Dylan and the way he had looked at her during their first encounter. She noticed him again a few more times at breakfast. He was seated at table number 1, yet there was no sign of disappointment on his face when he spotted Victoria with her husband. Instead, he flashed a smile and couldn't take his gaze off her. It seemed like fate had a hand in it, because the very next morning, Victoria's prediction came true: her husband fell ill. He decided to rest in their room for a few days, and Victoria saw this as a golden opportunity to encourage him to stay away so she wouldn't catch his illness. "Go on a trip to the sea. You'll breathe my bacteria here," her husband said between coughs. While Victoria genuinely felt for him, considering he was sick during what was supposed to be a well-deserved vacation, she couldn't help but see this as an opening to further explore her growing interest in her neighbor. Lost in thought, Victoria bumped into Dylan on the second floor, as if he was waiting for her. After several exchanges of pleasantries, there was a short pause, as if they were both waiting for something. Victoria looked up at him, a little hesitant, but determined. "You know what, let's go somewhere. I have a lot of free time right now," she offered. Dylane's face lit up with a smile, and they set off. He rented a car and they spent the whole day exploring the amazing places nearby. They even had lunch at an expensive restaurant, where Stanislav did not hesitate to take her hand while they waited for their order. Victoria felt a little awkward because of the public display of feelings, but she couldn't help herself. This little game was starting to cause a strange excitement. When evening came and the warm rays of the setting sun illuminated the sea and the surrounding houses, Dylan stopped the car at a cliff with a breathtaking view. They got out, leaning on the hood and admiring the scenery. There wasn't a soul around. Stanislav gently put his arm around Victoria's waist, turning her towards him. "I've been dreaming of this moment since the first day I saw you," he murmured with a soft smile. Intrigued, Victoria leaned in, her curiosity piqued. Deep down, she knew he wanted to kiss her, and although it made her nervous, she couldn't deny the magnetic pull she felt towards him. She was drawn to him, helplessly so. Dylan moved closer, his gaze, full of desire, stopped on her lips. Despite the fact that Victoria had every opportunity to pull away, she could not resist. The kiss that followed was scorching, and soon he was tugging at her dress. By this point, she was engrossed in what was happening both physically and emotionally. That evening, she returned to her husband's room, acting as if nothing had happened. "How was the tour with Natasha?" her husband asked, smiling. "It was great, I really enjoyed it," she replied, suppressing the truth about the real nature of the day's events. "I'm already feeling better, thanks to the pills. We'll go on the next trips together," he added, pulling her into a loving embrace. Victoria, outwardly agreeing with his words, was already planning her next secret meeting with Dylane. Their affair continued, and she planned to visit him at night while her husband slept soundly. Although they tried to keep their meeting secret, an unexpected witness eventually caught them at the crime scene. One evening, when Victoria knocked softly on Dilana's door, they were accidentally noticed by a neighbor named George. Stanislav quickly slammed the door, but George, deciding that they were just relaxing together, saw them the next day by the pool. They tried to hide behind an umbrella, but after exchanging a quick, furtive kiss, they parted, and their secret was still in the air. Georgie noticed a phone left behind on a chaise lounge near the couple, but by the time he realized it, they had already left. Determined to return the phone, he headed down to the pool. However, he couldn't remember the couple's room number. After a restless night, he hadn't paid attention to the room's nameplate. Although he didn't know them personally, he recognized the woman's face from her photo on the phone's screensaver. He approached the receptionist, got the room number, and made his way to the correct door, only to be greeted by a man he hadn't seen before. The woman, who was now with her actual husband, seemed equally surprised by his appearance. She thanked Georgie for returning the phone and jokingly remarked on her forgetfulness before quickly closing the door. It dawned on Georgie that the woman was living a double life, spending the nights with one man and the days with another, much like his own recent heartbreak when he discovered his ex had been seeing other people behind his back. The situation with his temporary hotel neighbors consumed more of his thoughts than he expected. Eventually, he told Svetlana about what he'd witnessed during breakfast. At first, she was skeptical, but Georgie urged her to confirm his suspicions by setting an alarm to check if her husband was sneaking out at night. Georgie returned to his table, leaving it up to Svetlana's husband to take action. The idea of Victoria being unfaithful weighed heavily on him, especially after hearing rumors from Georgie. He followed Georgie's suggestion, setting an alarm, but ended up spending the entire night awake. Victoria's suspicious behavior only heightened his anxiety, with her nervousness and hints of secret plans for the evening. Anatoly feigned sleep when Victoria eventually left the room, leading him to follow her and uncover her secret rendezvous. What followed was a dramatic confrontation that left her lover wearing sunglasses for several days. Their vacation came to a bitter end, with Victoria facing the fallout of her actions. Anatoly wasted no time in filing for divorce when they returned home. Victoria tried to patch things up with her lover, but it was too late. She was left to pick up the pieces of her life alone. This story raises some serious questions about trust, relationships, and the consequences of cheating. It's hard not to sympathize with Anatoly, who seemed unaware of his wife's actions until the truth came out. As for Victoria, it is difficult to sympathize with someone who preferred a short affair to marriage. And Georgie, although at first she was just a bystander, plays a key role in uncovering the truth.